The satellite had no memorable name. It wasn't celebrated or launched with applause. No crowds watched it rise, no flags waved in its honor. It was assembled quietly in a sealed laboratory, piece by piece, under artificial lights that never dimmed. Engineers referred to it only by its serial number, a long, impersonal string that ensured no one would grow attached to it. Officially, it was described as a passive observational platform, designed to study background radiation anomalies. That description was technically true, but it concealed its real purpose. Hidden beneath its outer shell were experimental instruments added late in development. Their existence was buried in obscure documentation and disguised behind vague technical language. Only a small group of scientists knew what those sensors were designed to measure. Even fewer understood why they had been included at all. The launch itself was uneventful. In the silence of a desert night, the rocket ignited, briefly illuminating the darkness before disappearing into the sky. Within hours, the satellite entered orbit, circling Earth every 92 minutes. It transmitted steady streams of telemetry, power levels, temperature, radiation readings, all perfectly normal. For weeks, nothing unusual happened. The data matched existing models. Analysts archived it without concern. The satellite was doing exactly what it was supposed to do. Then, one Tuesday, something changed. A junior analyst noticed a tiny anomaly buried deep within the data. It lasted less than a millisecond, a faint spike, easily dismissed as interference. But it repeated. Always in the same region of orbit, far above the South Atlantic. At first, it was blamed on solar activity or sensor noise, but the spikes didn't match any known patterns. They didn't align with cosmic radiation, solar flares, or Earth's magnetic fields. More troubling, they weren't random. When plotted over time, the anomalies formed structures, subtle, deliberate patterns that seemed to carry internal logic. The data was escalated. Meetings were held in secure rooms. The satellite's hidden instruments were activated at higher sensitivity, despite the risk of draining its limited power. What they discovered defied explanation. The secondary sensors weren't measuring radiation or particles. They were measuring something far stranger, tiny distortions in space itself. Fluctuations in geometry, variations in distance and angle that shouldn't exist. For decades, physicists had theorized that space might contain hidden structures, dimensions folded into reality so tightly that they were invisible. These ideas existed mostly on chalkboards and in equations. No one expected to detect them directly. Yet the satellite had... At first, the team suspected equipment failure. They ran diagnostics, checked redundancies, verified every system. Everything worked perfectly, the instruments were accurate, the data was real. Space itself was behaving differently in certain regions. As the satellite continued its orbit, the distortions appeared again and again. They clustered along invisible boundaries, vast and smooth, like currents in an unseen ocean. When the satellite crossed one of these boundaries, its instruments recorded sharp fluctuations, as if it were passing between layers of reality with slightly different physical properties. In late-night discussions, one word surfaced repeatedly: dimensions. Not alternate universes filled with parallel versions of Earth, but hidden layers woven into the fabric of space itself. Dimensions that didn't contain worlds, but influenced the one we lived in. Subtle, invisible, yet undeniably present. The project was immediately classified. Access to the data was restricted. The team was reduced to a handful of specialists sworn to secrecy. Publicly, the satellite remained nothing more than a routine scientific instrument. Privately, it had become one of the most important observational tools ever created. Then the patterns began to change. The boundaries shifted. Regions that had been stable for months began to fluctuate. The distortions pulsed with strange rhythms, growing more complex. Analysts began comparing the satellite's data with other global events. One discovered a weak but disturbing correlation with earthquakes. Dimensional distortions sometimes appeared just before seismic activity, as if the hidden layers of reality were connected to physical stress within Earth's crust. It raised a terrifying possibility. These dimensions weren't separate from our universe, they were part of it, interacting with it. As data accumulated, machine learning systems were deployed to analyze the patterns. They revealed structures too complex for human intuition. Fractals, recursive loops, mathematical symmetries unlike anything previously observed. Some models suggested the dimensions evolved over time, reshaping themselves slowly. Others proposed something even more controversial, that consciousness itself might interact with these hidden layers, not intentionally, but as a byproduct of neural activity. Then, without warning, the satellite recorded something new. At first, it appeared to be noise, but deeper analysis revealed structure. It wasn't random, it was organized, repetitive, intentional. It wasn't a signal in the traditional sense, no radio waves, no binary code. Instead, it was a modulation of space itself, the curvature of reality shifting in precise, controlled patterns. Something wasn't transmitting through space. Something was manipulating space. The realization was deeply unsettling. What if these dimensions weren't empty? What if something existed there? Days passed before the signal appeared again. When it did, it was different, more complex, as if adapting. The satellite's instruments continued recording passively, unaware of the implications. Scientists began conducting cautious experiments. They adjusted the satellite's orbit, altered instrument sensitivity. In one controlled test, they emitted a burst of electromagnetic radiation during a dimensional boundary crossing. The response was subtle but unmistakable. The distortions shifted, not randomly, but in reaction. Interaction was possible. This discovery triggered intense debate among the project's leaders. Some argued humanity had a responsibility to continue observing, to learn, to understand. Others warned of unknown risks. If something existed within those dimensions, observing it might not be harmless. Observation itself could be a form of contact. Eventually, a decision was made. Without public explanation, the satellite's secondary instruments were shut down. Official reports cited a power malfunction. Publicly, the anomalies were dismissed as calibration errors. Research papers were quietly withdrawn. The project ended. The satellite remained in orbit, continuing its original mundane mission. The world never knew what it had discovered. But the data was never completely erased. Fragments remained in private archives, secure servers, and personal records. Some scientists couldn't let it go. Years later, they still reviewed the recordings, searching for answers. One of them noticed something disturbing. Even after the experimental instruments were shut down, faint traces of dimensional distortions still appeared in the satellite's primary data. Weak, inconclusive, but consistent. It was as if the satellite, once exposed to those hidden layers, could never fully stop sensing them. Or perhaps the dimensions themselves had changed. Today, the satellite still circles Earth, unnoticed among thousands of other objects in orbit. Its serial number has been reassigned. Its mission is considered complete. No one monitors its data closely anymore. But the hidden dimensions it detected haven't disappeared. If they exist, they are still here, folded into reality, intersecting our world in ways we cannot see, watching, waiting. The satellite never opened a door. It only revealed that the door had always been there, and that sometimes, simply observing is enough to be noticed.